Hey guys, this is JJ with Express Workshops. This week we are going to retouch and enhance the eyes inside of Photoshop. Okay, let's get started on retouching and enhancing the eyes. Before we really get started on the actual work, there's just a couple things that I want to kind of explain my method here, my madness. Whenever I do any kind of retouching or enhancing, I want to look at the basic structure that I have of the person's face. And what I mean by that is that there are going to be some areas that are going to be light and some areas are going to be dark, of course. And so I have to enhance those areas. So for instance, if I'm doing a retouch, first of all, I'm going to be looking at this whole area here. I'm not going to just go in here and look at just this area. A lot of people kind of get caught up in just doing that area. As far as I'm concerned, this whole area is the eyes. So you really want to go in there and make sure that you take care of that whole area. Also in there is that, like I said, you have your lights and darks. You see this area right here that has light. You see this area right here that has light. You start to see the darkness here, a little bit of shadow right there, definitely the shadow there that you really want to look at. And then even on a more, close in scale, you have to understand that especially the eyeball itself, let me go back and draw this again. The eyeball itself is a sphere that is behind the eyelid itself. So you're going to have, especially if your light is coming down from this direction here, you can see the shadow there. You can see the light's coming in from this area. That means that you're going to have an area here that's going to be a little bit in shadow, this kind of area in here. So, and this right here will be the lightest part of it, and then you might get that going back into shadow there. And that's going to give that eyeball kind of the brownness that it needs. So as I do this technique, I'll kind of explain what I'm talking about there. So let me get rid of this stuff. All right, let's get started on this actual retouch. And I can go ahead and get rid of this layer that I had here to draw on. Take care of that. All right, now the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to get in here pretty close so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, this young lady definitely has wonderful looking eyes at the beginning, but it's photography. We want to go ahead and enhance what we've already got here. So the part that I want to look at first is this area here where there's a little bit of red and blood vessels and kind of things. And of course, we're human. We have those in there. So personally, I don't get too crazy. I mean, this is a senior portrait that I'm working on, so I'm not going to be crazy about getting every little blood vessel taken care of. I want it to look as natural as possible. I don't want to get that crazy, kind of fake look to it. So I'm really going to do that. Now, one of the ways I do that, it's a little bit weird. I mean, I've just kind of done this over the years. I'll go ahead and duplicate my layer so we can make sure we are working on a layer besides my background layer. And I'll go to my brush tool here and I'll go down to my mixer brush tool. Now what that's going to allow me to do is pick up a color and then paint directly onto a layer that color. So basically all I want to do is get some of this light color to cover it up. Now a lot of people go in there with the clone stamp tool and get all of those out of there, but I just think it does the same thing, and my background is in digital painting and artwork, so it's a little more natural for me to do that. Like I said, I have this layer here that I duplicated and I want to paint on a blank layer. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new layer, and I'm going to use my Alt and Shift or Alt and click a layer here, or a color, sorry. And I sample the color, and I am going to just paint that directly onto that layer. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm getting some of that color out, some of that red out, and I'm keep going in my Alt. Every time you see that little target there, I'm pressing Alt, and I'm just pushing, painting some of that color. I'll pull a little more of that in there and just cover up some of that. Now I'm going to leave that color in there. As you can see, I'm going to go before and after here. You can see what I've done so far. Just kind of gone in there and painted directly on top of there. Some areas right here that I might want to go in and hit. All right, let's get the other one here real quick. I'm just selecting and painting. Oh, one thing that's important that I didn't mention here is that you really need to make sure that you have the sample all layers checked here, because you need to be able to sample from this layer 1 to paint on the layer 2 here. Got a little ahead of myself. All right, and I'm just going to go ahead and quickly finish that one up. And I'm using a Wacom Cintiq, and it makes it a lot easier. If you're doing this with a mouse, it might be a little harder, a little balancing act trying to get it right. But you know, if you're doing some retouching, I would suggest getting some sort of tablet. Let me show the before and after here. So I'm just showing that I'm kind of smoothing out that area. Okay, that works out good enough. Let's back up and take a look at that. All right, now a lot of times if I think I've gotten a little bit too much, I can go in here and bring the opacity down. But I think in this case, I think I'm okay with what I'm doing. All right, so quickly, let's go ahead and get to the next stage here, which I like to go in and just do a general brightening of the eyes. But again, remember I was saying that we're working with a sphere here. So the eye is gonna come, you know, in here. Maybe I should change my color here. All right, let's go here. I'm working with a sphere here, and I want to make sure that I am going to brighten this area right here is the area that I want to brighten. So this area I'm going to leave where it is, and that might make it look a little more natural. All right, so and how I do that is I go to an adjustment layer, a curves adjustment layer, and I just pick this little scrubby, and I click on the area that I want to change. In this case, I want to lighten it, so I'll bring that up. And on that layer mask, I'll go ahead and Control I and reverse that so that it's covered with black. Now we're looking at what we had before. And then I'm just going to paint white on that layer mask to reveal the color that I had, or the adjustment that I had there. I'm going to bring my flow down here too. There we go. And I'm just painting on this lower part of this. Just kind of blending that part in, because I want to keep this shadow area here. I want to keep that going. Do that on both eyes very quickly. Now, the shadow is probably going to change. What's going to change depending on the photograph. But when I shot this, I know where the light source was. I know I can see on here where it actually is, so I'm not having a problem finding it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off and on so you can see what I've done. There's the before, there's the after. Now let's back up. Sometimes it's a little better to back up to kind of take a look at that from a distance. That's the after, that's the before. So I'm bringing that in. That might be a little bit too much for me, so I'm just gonna back off the opacity completely and just dial in as much as I want. And that looks like about 71% works out good for me. All right, so that is my whitening and brightening part of it. You need to check out one of my other videos that I did a a full tutorial on brightening and whitening eyes. But that's not this tutorial, is it? Okay, so let's go. I'm going to go ahead and start doing some lights and darks in the eyes. So I'm going to go ahead and get another curves adjustment layer. And this time I'm going to be working on the iris itself. So I'm going to go ahead and pick my scrubby. And I'm going to pick the lightest area here that I can find on the iris. And I'm going to bring that up. And then again, I'm going to go to that layer mask and I'm going to invert that. And I'm going to paint on that white or that black mask with white. And again, I'm just taking the lightest areas here and painting on those. Now I have my flow at a low number here, so I'm just building that up because I don't want to get too crazy at first. Real subtle. Here's my before and after. That's the before, that's the after. So just like a little bit of glow in there. And then I want to go ahead and get my darks. So I'm going to go ahead and do another curves adjustment layer. Kind of see the pattern that we're doing here. I get this scrubby. And I'm going to get in here close. Let me get in here close so we can show you what I'm doing. I'm going to grab this area right here, this darkest area. I'm going to click on it and I'm going to drag it down because I need to have that to get darkened. All right. Go back to my layer mask, invert that mask, go back in, and I'm going to pull back a little bit here so I don't get too crazy. All right, with my brush tool on that black mask, I'm going to paint with white, which is going to darken this area. All right, and I'll get right in there too to make sure that all of that contrast comes out. All right, let's do it before and after on that. There's before, there's the after. Let's pull back, take a look at that. Really starting to make those eyes pop. All right, now it's kind of one of those balancing acts. You start looking at it and you start going, oh, have I gone too far? Have I done what, gone over? The cool thing about doing it with adjustment layers, you can go in there and you can adjust the opacity of whatever edit that you've done at any time. So we're still good with that. Now, like I said at the beginning, I want to go in and actually make sure that when I retouch these eyes, I'm not just doing just that area in there. I want to make sure that I'm doing this whole area here because that's still part of the eyes. And how I do that is basically the same way that I did with my contrast inside on the eyeball itself. So I'm going to go ahead and just get another adjustment layer. Now you could do this with a 50% gray layer, but really for what I'm doing, I don't think I need to do that. I just need to make sure that I look at all of the light areas. I'm going to go do the light areas first on here. So I'm just going to do my scrubby on this area here, which seems to be about the lightest. And I'm just going to bring that up just slightly. I don't need to go crazy with this one. And I'm going to invert that mask I did before. And I really want to pull down my flow this time because I really want this to be subtle. All I'm doing is a little bit of dodging and burning on this area. And I've got my black mask that I'm painting white on again. I'm just doing some subtle enhancing here, just brightening a little bit in this whole area. Make sure that I get all those areas done. Give it some form. Now there's little areas like this that I like to go in here too and just kind of bring out some of that area. So you almost can't see it until I go to the before and after on there. All right, let's pull back out and let's take a look at that before and after. There's the before, there's the after, just a subtle hint. All right, I guess you can guess what we're going to do next. We'll go up here, we'll get another curved adjustment layer, and I'm going to go for the darker area. So I can see this area right here is a little darker. I could go here. This will be fine. I'm just going to click and drag down a little bit. Go back to my layer mask, invert that, and I'm going to be painting on this black mask with white. And you see this area right here, we need to enhance that. All of these dark areas in here we can contour and just bring that contrast. Now I'll actually even go over the eyebrow with this too, just to kind of give it a little bit of contrast. In here we've got a lot of areas that could darken in. The eyelashes themselves I'll darken. The shadow here I'll bring out. Just kind of that whole area. And you're going to have to forgive me for kind of mumbling as I do this. It seems that whenever I start doing artwork that my brain starts to go to the task at hand, and I can't really explain sometimes what I'm doing. All right, so let's take a look at the before and after on that. Make sure we're not gone too much. Just a subtle change. Let's pull out here. Take a look at that. That's the before. That's the after. So let's take a look at this whole retouch here as a before and after. I'll get a little closer here. And, oops, got the wrong button here. There we go. That's the before on the eyes, and that's the after. So we've got just a subtle amount of retouching there. Now, some people might think, well, you went a little overboard. Some people might think that you just, you didn't do enough. So it's really up to how you do your retouching. This is basically how I do mine quickly. Now, I might have done it a little bit more overboard than I usually would because I'm trying to make sure that this shows up on the video. Anyway, that is our tutorial for this week. If you have any questions on what I've done here, just make sure that you leave a comment below in the comment area. And if you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. And please subscribe to my channel so that you can get my videos every week. That will be it for this week, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.